I was a cynical, angry guy, getting progressively less cynical and angry. But I did not realize when I married my wife and we started going that I actually was battling with distrust of women. You brought us this far for a reason, didn't you? Well, we need you to act. And he's got broad shoulders. He'll take it. All he asks is, don't turn your back on me. Just don't turn your back on me.
So you'd probably maybe recommend or suggest, like, for people that do feel like they live monotonous lives, find ways to get creative.
Yeah.
Find ways to get creative.
We were born to create. God is a creative God. He created human beings to be creative, to create stuff, to make stuff that's not been done before in new and different and wild and wonderful ways. That means engaging with fear, engaging with shame, because it means, sitting down to write at a computer, often I have this voice in my mind, who's going to believe anything I write? Yeah, sure, Kimball, come on, switch it off. Mm-hmm. You're not that smart. You have to engage with that and just I'm going to write anyway. And funnily enough, what happens usually is the ideas start to flow. You have to start writing first, then the ideas come. Sometimes the idea comes first. But if you don't know what you're going to write, sit down and start writing anyway. And stuff will inevitably come along. We're designed to be creative. Being creative and going on an adventure might be two sides of the same coin.
How do you balance your responsibilities with spontaneous moments of fun?
I have two, they're sort of mental modes. Everybody has multiple mind modes. They're not all, some of them are positive, some of them are negative. And you probably found yourself talking with somebody and you realize they don't make you feel good. It's because you slipped into a mental mode that you probably built when you were a kid, when you were an infant. And it's motivated, it's driven by shame or by fear or something like that. The two mental modes that I practice the most are curiosity and fun. And I'm always trying to look around me and see if I can spot something or hear something that's said and think, where does that come from? What's behind that? Dig, 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 dig. Find out. The other one is fun. Fun with, and for me, it's often fun with what other people say. I love twisting people's words against them, just for fun, just to wind them up. Nice. Plays on words. Pretend, twist their words so that they said something they didn't say, and it makes them look really, really bad. But everybody in the room knows it's hilarious. I cultivate the fun. Literally, I choose to be ridiculous. I choose to turn things upside down and upset the apple cart just because the apple cart's there. You can always put the apples back in the cart
for sure.
And that always makes for fun. When you do that, it's infectious, it's contagious. Very soon, everybody else is doing it. Everybody else relaxes. I realized, going back to about 25 years ago now, we hadn't long arrived in England, and I was working for Airbus, showing up at the office every morning. And it was a big open office, lots of people in there. And I suddenly, I started winding people up just as soon as they arrived in. Julie would, hey, shorty, and she was only 5'2", and she would look at me, sort of half glare, and then realize I was winding her up. And pretty soon she cracks up. And I mock insults or funny stories or witticisms. that make people start laughing a little bit. And that has a disproportionately positive impact in the whole office. Because it's when I realized almost everybody is arriving at work in the morning uptight, anxious to at least some degree, sometimes a significant degree. If you can crack that very quickly, makes a big difference. People realize, oh, no need to be this anxious, not that bad. Yeah, so I developed a reputation for that.
It brightens things up, though. People need a little life.
Yeah.
In their office. Life gets boring very, very quickly. What role does service play in your sense of adventure, helping others?
The first thing that comes to mind is that old Bob Dylan song, "You Gotta Serve Somebody." I don't know if I haven't heard it in years, and it came out in around 1980, I think. You gotta serve somebody. You might like to drink whiskey. You might like to drink milk. You might like this, but you're just going to have to serve somebody. There's about 8 verses. They all end up, but you're going to have to serve somebody. You can't go through life without serving somebody. You can't eat. You can't survive. We are designed to interact and to give somebody else what they can't give themselves, but you do. You do know how to give them that. And as a result, his life's easier, and I'm a little bit richer. There's this guy named Rabbi Daniel Lapin. He's written several books, but one of them is Business Secrets from the Bible, and blew my mind. He wrote in there, he was doing some teaching about Hebrew, stuff about ancient Hebrew that I didn't know. He said that in comparison, in English, we often have a word that has multiple meanings. Sometimes even different spellings, but often the same spelling can have multiple meanings, and the different meaning, the different definitions have no connection with each other whatsoever. That's not true of Hebrew. In ancient Hebrew, if a single word, single specific word, has 2 or 3 or multiple meanings, they are all deliberate and they are connected. We took an example.
Hi, my name is Stefan Alexis, conceptual photographer turned YouTuber and the creator of Fatherly Advice. Now, this channel was created to help men of God fill the gap in a world of fatherlessness. On this channel, you'll find fathers from all walks of life share their insights and advice on some of life's greatest challenges. If you'd like to support what we do, you can check out our Patreon, where you can find full-length interviews, behind-the-scenes content, my thoughts on the conversations, and much more. You can also support us by liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing this content to the people that need it the most. So many of us suffer in silence, and you don't know who you could impact with a few simple clicks. Lastly, if you'd like to be a part of this channel, you can check out the description below, where you can find instructions on how to contact us. And yeah, that's it for now. Enjoy the rest of the conversation.
But it's the word for money is also the word for blood. What goes around in your body and delivers nutrients where they're supposed to go and removes the waste to where it's supposed to go? Blood.
Mm-hmm.
Money in an economy is designed to do exactly the same thing. And that's where the service bit comes in. If you are serving, you are moving the nutrients, you're moving the money around and the nutrients around the ecosystem. If I'm having adventure and I am doing something that delivers value to somebody else, those two are almost synonymous. To me, anyway.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
How do you encourage your children to embrace adventure?
Well, they've flown the coop now, so I don't anymore.
Or how did you?
I think anything. I encouraged when they wanted to do something that was not something they'd done before, I encouraged it. And the other one was to model it. I mean, we simply by moving to a different country and staying there for 20 years, that was an adventure. I also started to explore. I worked as an employee engineer for 10 years, and then I quit to become a freelancer. And all that time, I started exploring my love for the written word, and actively exploring other business opportunities. And I did. I never actually launched any others, but over in the UK anyway. But I always tried to model it. I don't think kids will respect anything you don't model. Early on, anyway. By the time they get into their teens, you're already getting less influence over them. They're getting most of their influence from their peers. But early on, if you don't model something, they don't do it.
Mm-hmm. How do you like your kids to remember you?
I hope they remember me as someone who enjoyed them and who was their friend and who did his best. I certainly did my best, the best that I knew how. I still made mistakes, and some of them still make me wince. But I always wanted to enjoy them. It's really funny. I don't know where that idea came to me. I was sitting in the hospital holding Emily. She was a day old. And for the joy from that was immense, not just obviously because we had been in that same hospital just 16 months earlier with just battling terrible grief when we lost Tanya. But here I was sitting in the hospital holding Emily. She's 1 day old. And the thought came to me, well, whatever else I might do, I'm sure going to enjoy this little one. And I sort of, where did that come from? And I realized that it was actually important. And that if I enjoyed my kids, then whatever else I did or didn't do, they were already one leg up. Because if mommy or daddy doesn't enjoy their kids, they grow up thinking they're not lovable, they're not enjoyable. And that's lining yourself up 3 meters behind the starting line.
And the last question I have for you before we wrap up. Any words of encouragement for people, especially Christians, who may be afraid of the adventure that God has for them?
Yeah, you're going to be afraid no matter what, whether you go on an adventure or you don't. Like I said, we've got the 3 most toxic chemicals on the planet are fear, shame, and envy, and they live in our heads. Ain't no getting rid of them. You can control them. You can choose to ignore them. But if you try and live in such a way as to minimize the fear, you will find that to be counterproductive. And not so much embracing the fear, but choosing to tolerate it. A bit like pain, really. Some people that live in chronic pain from some condition their whole lives. And I remember that's one guy. He was getting married. He just gotten married. In fact, we were standing in the reception afterwards. Said, "How you doing? Is you in any pain?" He said, "Tons." He was grinning. Tons of pain. He had this neck brace around. You couldn't tell. I wouldn't have known if I hadn't asked him. I would have assumed he was fine. Tons of pain. Well, fear, shame, and envy, they're always going to be around. You just have to decide, I'm ignoring them.
That's good, man. Thank you, David. Appreciate you.
This has been fun.